The Larry Swedroe Portfolio, or simply the Larry Portfolio, was created by the legendary evidence-based investing author and advisor Larry Swedroe. Here we'll take a look at its components, performance, and the best ETFs to use in its construction. The Larry Portfolio was designed to capture more risk-free return by enhancing factor exposure to the known equity factors that explain stock market returns outside of market beta. In this case, particularly the size and value factors. Specifically, small stocks tend to have higher returns than large stocks, and value stocks, usually somewhat boring stocks that are believed to be underpriced, tend to have higher returns than their growth counterparts. The Larry Portfolio attempts to capture the return of the stock market at a lower volatility and risk by going all in on small cap value globally. Many seasoned investors seem to be tilting towards small cap value stocks nowadays, but Swedroe clearly has a stomach of steel in using small cap value stocks for the entire equities position. He argues that due to their greater volatility and higher expected returns, this heavy tilt allows for a lower allocation to stocks and a higher allocation to intermediate treasury bonds, which are considered safer and less volatile than stocks. I'm a fan of global diversification, and this portfolio hits small cap value stocks in every geography. Basically, the Larry Portfolio takes factor investing in equities to the extreme. Interestingly, this 30-70 asset allocation happens to be the risk parity weighting for stocks and intermediate bonds. The Larry Swedroe Portfolio looks like this: 15% US small cap value, 7.5% ex-US developed market small cap value, 7.5% emerging market small cap value, and 70% intermediate treasury bonds. So who is Larry Swedroe? Larry Swedroe is the director of research for Buckingham and the BAM Alliance. Swedroe is a prolific writer and contributor in the investing world. You'll see him making forum posts on the Bogleheads forum, as well as writing syndicated articles around the web for sites like ETF.com, Yahoo Finance, and Forbes. If you've read my take on dividends, you'll know I'm a big fan. He takes a scientific, evidence-based, data-driven approach to investing, not unlike Paul Merriman. I usually try to do the same. Swedroe originally presented the Larry Portfolio in a book with Kevin Grogan in 2014 titled Reducing the Risk of Black Swans. I would also highly recommend his book, The Only Guide to a Winning Investment Strategy You'll Ever Need. If you're interested specifically in learning about factor investing, he also has a book titled Your Complete Guide to Factor-Based Investing. Using comparable mutual funds from Dimensional to extend this backtest, here's a rough approximation of the Larry Portfolio's performance versus an S&P 500 index fund for the period 1995 through 2022. It doesn't look too exciting, but note that these are two very different portfolios for different risk tolerances. Notice how the Larry Portfolio had about 1/3 the volatility of the S&P 500 and a max drawdown of about 1/4 the size. As a result, the Larry Portfolio delivered a much higher risk-adjusted return as measured by Sharpe. The Larry Portfolio should also reliably beat the stock market in years of bear markets and market crashes. Appropriately, the Larry Portfolio beat the S&P 500 in years like 2000, 2001, 2002, 2008, 2018, and 2022. The Larry Swedroe Portfolio is for the risk-averse investor who still wants to take advantage of factor tilts in equities, namely size and value, with small-cap value stocks. This portfolio requires high conviction in these factors as it contains no large or mid-caps. The decade 2010 through 2019 wasn't great for the size and value factors. I would argue this shouldn't deter you from believing in them over the long term. Small caps have still crushed large caps historically, and value has beaten growth historically. Moreover, we would expect negative factor premiums from time to time, even for extended time periods like the last decade. But interestingly, there have been more 10-year periods where the US market delivered a negative premium than there have been 10-year periods where US value delivered a negative premium. As a rule, I don't employ market timing, but AQR submits that value is still basically the cheapest it's ever been right now, suggesting that now may be the worst time to give up on the factor and that it's due for a comeback. Giving up on a portfolio simply because it underperforms its benchmark is known as tracking error regret. Don't succumb to it. Value stocks beat growth stocks in 2021 and 2022, so that comeback may indeed be happening. Factors are simply unique or independent sources of risk. A typical 60-40 portfolio has more risk than one might realize at first glance. Due to the comparatively greater volatility of stocks compared to bonds, over 90% of the portfolio's risk is market beta. Conveniently, diversifying across factors actually leads to a stronger portfolio in terms of reducing the risk of black swan events, but you must be able to live with tracking error regret. Adding in factors necessarily means your portfolio's performance does not resemble the market. There may be periods of underperformance. I personally still very much believe in the size and value factors. Like the Larry Portfolio, my portfolio tilts small cap value. Now let's look at how to build the Larry Portfolio with ETFs. Utilizing some pretty new funds from Avantis with great factor loadings so far, we can construct the Larry Portfolio like this: AVUV at 15%, AVDV at 8%, AVES at 7%, and VGIT at 70%. I'll provide a link in the description for M1 to invest in this portfolio. What do you think of the Larry Portfolio? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.